If you enjoyed this audiobook, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the audiobook. Chapter 1, Building Bright Beginnings. Part 1, The Magic of a Growing Brain. Your baby's brain produces 700 new neural connections every second during the first 3 years of life. This remarkable feat makes the most sophisticated computer seem primitive by comparison. Yet most parents remain unaware of the extraordinary construction project happening inside their child's head each day. Think of your child's developing brain as a bustling garden where connections grow at breathtaking speed. Unlike a traditional garden that follows predictable seasonal patterns, this neural garden responds instantly to every experience. When neurologist Dr. Patricia Kuhl studied infant brains at the University of Washington, she discovered that babies listening to human voices showed explosive growth in language centers, while those exposed only to recorded speech showed significantly less development. The difference? Human interaction provides the rich emotional context that makes connections stick. Consider what happened when Romanian orphanages were studied in the 1990s. Children who received minimal human contact in their first years showed measurably smaller brain regions responsible for attachment and learning, even years later. But those moved to nurturing foster homes before age 2 caught up almost completely. This research revealed how profoundly environment shapes brain architecture during critical windows. Every smile you share with your infant literally builds pathways in their social brain. When you respond to their cries with comfort, you strengthen neural circuits that help them manage stress throughout life. MIT researchers found that children who heard more conversational turns with caregivers developed stronger language processing abilities, regardless of socioeconomic status. The key factor wasn't just hearing words, but engaging in back-and-forth communication. Your everyday moments carry tremendous power. Reading bedtime stories creates pathways for literacy and emotional regulation simultaneously. Playing peekaboo builds anticipation and memory circuits. Even something as simple as narrating your grocery shopping helps your toddler's brain organize information and build vocabulary. The most fascinating discovery from neuroscience research is that brains prune unused connections during development, like a master gardener removing weak branches. Your child's brain eliminates pathways that aren't regularly used. This means the experiences you provide literally shape which neural networks survive and flourish. Dr. Bruce Perry's work with traumatized children shows how consistent, loving interactions can actually repair damaged neural pathways. Children who seemed permanently affected by early neglect made remarkable recoveries when placed in environments rich with responsive relationships and meaningful experiences. What does this mean for you as a parent? Your attention, responsiveness, and emotional warmth aren't just nice gestures. They're powerful tools that physically shape your child's developing brain. Every hug, every conversation, every moment of patient guidance contributes to building the neural foundation that will support learning, relationships, and resilience throughout their lifetime. Part 2, How Early Moments Shape a Lifetime. When Harvard researchers began tracking 268 men in 1938, they had no idea they would discover one of the most profound truths about human development. 7 decades later, the Harvard study of adult development revealed that the single strongest predictor of life satisfaction, career success, and mental health wasn't intelligence, wealth, or achievement. It was the quality of relationships formed in the earliest years of life. This finding illuminates something remarkable about how our brains develop. Those seemingly ordinary moments between parent and child, the sleepy conversations during midnight feedings, the patient responses to endless questions, the comfort offered during scraped knees, are actually laying down neural pathways that will influence decision-making, stress responses, and relationship patterns for decades to come. Consider the case of identical twins studied by researchers at the University of Minnesota. Despite sharing identical DNA, The twin who experienced more responsive caregiving in infancy showed dramatically different outcomes by age 30. This twin demonstrated greater emotional regulation, stronger problem-solving abilities, and more satisfying relationships. The difference wasn't genetic, it was experiential. Dr. Ruth. Alan Shore's groundbreaking research at UCLA reveals why these early moments matter so profoundly. During the first 2 years of life, the right brain develops rapidly, forming the foundation for emotional regulation, social connection, and stress management. Every time a caregiver responds sensitively to a baby's needs, they're literally sculpting neural circuits that will determine how that child approaches challenges throughout life. Think of Maria, whose mother consistently responded to her infant cries with patience and warmth. By age 5, Maria approached new situations with confidence, viewing challenges as puzzles to solve rather than threats to avoid. Compare this to Jamie, whose early cries often went unattended. At 5, Jamie displayed heightened anxiety and tended to give up quickly when faced with difficulties. The mechanism behind this transformation lies in what neuroscientists call serve and return interactions. When a baby babbles and a parent responds with animated conversation, they're not just being cute. They're building the neural architecture for language, attention, and social skills. The Abecedarian Project, which followed children for 40 years, demonstrated that those who experienced rich serve-and-return interactions in their first 3 years showed higher academic achievement, better health, and stronger relationships well into adulthood. These early templates become the lens through which children interpret the world. A toddler whose curiosity is met with encouragement develops an internal belief that exploration leads to discovery. One whose questions are dismissed learns that wondering is unwelcome. These beliefs, formed before conscious memory, shape every subsequent learning experience. What makes this science particularly hopeful is its emphasis on relationship quality over perfection. Children don't need flawless parents. They need present, responsive ones who repair mistakes with patience and reconnection. Each interaction is an opportunity to strengthen the neural pathways that support lifelong learning and emotional well-being. Part 3. Simple Steps to Spark Curiosity. When Maria Montessori first observed children in her schools over a century ago, she noticed something remarkable. Given the freedom to explore, young minds naturally gravitated toward learning, like plants reaching for sunlight. This wasn't coincidence, but biology in action. Modern neuroscience confirms what she witnessed. Curiosity isn't something we need to manufacture in children, it's something we need to protect and nurture. The most effective curiosity sparking happens through what researchers call serve and return interactions. Think of it like a tennis match, where your child serves up a question or observation, and you return it with genuine interest. When 3-year-old Emma points to a butterfly and says, "Fly pretty," her mother doesn't just say, "Yes, nice butterfly." Instead, she kneels down and asks, "What do you notice about how it moves its wings?" This simple shift transforms a moment into a mini investigation. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on whole brain development shows that curiosity flourishes when children feel emotionally safe to wonder without judgment. The Nakamura family discovered this when they stopped correcting their 4-year-old son's why questions and started responding with, "That's interesting. What do you think?" Within weeks, his questions became more sophisticated, moving from "Why is the sky blue?" to "Why don't we see the blue at night?" The kitchen becomes a natural laboratory when we invite children to participate rather than just observe. Chef and mother Julia Child once said that cooking teaches chemistry, math, and patience all at once. When 5-year-old Marcus helps measure flour, he's learning fractions. When he watches bread rise, he's witnessing biological processes. The key is narrating what's happening. The yeast is eating the sugar. Can you see the bubbles it's making? Nature offers endless opportunities for curiosity without any preparation required. Rachel Carson, the environmentalist who sparked the modern conservation movement, credited her sense of wonder to childhood hours spent exploring tide pools with her mother. Today's families can create similar experiences during simple walks. Instead of rushing to destinations, try stopping when something catches your child's attention. One family started timing how long it took ants to carry different objects, a game that led their daughter to become fascinated with engineering. Following your child's natural interests proves more powerful than any structured curriculum. When researcher Peter Gray studied children in democratic schools, he found that those allowed to pursue their own curiosities developed deeper expertise than peers in traditional settings. 7-year-old Zoe became obsessed with dinosaurs after finding a fossil on vacation. Rather than redirecting her toward more practical subjects, her parents supported her passion. She learned to read through dinosaur books, practiced math by calculating prehistoric timelines, and developed public speaking skills by giving dinosaur presentations to anyone who would listen. The secret lies in patience and trust. Children's brains are wired to seek patterns and make connections. Our role isn't to provide all the answers, but to create space for questions to flourish. Part 4. The Power of Feelings and Learning. When 4-year-old Marcus spilled an entire bowl of cereal, his immediate reaction was to freeze in terror. His brain had already learned that mistakes meant anger from adults. This single moment reveals something profound about learning. Our emotional state doesn't just influence what we absorb. It fundamentally determines whether our brains are even capable of taking in new information. The connection between feelings and learning runs deeper than most parents realize. When children feel safe and supported, their prefrontal cortex, the brain's learning center, stays online and ready to process new information. But when they feel threatened, criticized, or overwhelmed, their amygdala hijacks the system, flooding their brain with stress hormones that literally shut down learning pathways. This isn't weakness or defiance. It's biology. So, the power of feelings and learning. When children feel safe and supported, their prefrontal cortex, the brain's learning center, stays online and ready to process new information. Dr. Wolfern and I will talk later. Let's unpack this. The connection between feelings and learning runs deeper than most parents realize. Daniel Siegel's research at UCLA demonstrates that children experiencing chronic stress show measurable changes in brain structure, particularly in areas responsible for memory and executive function. The good news? The opposite is equally true. Children who receive consistent emotional support develop stronger neural pathways for learning, problem-solving, and resilience. Consider how 8-year-old Maya approached learning to ride a bike. Her father noticed her frustration building after several falls. Instead of pushing harder, he sat beside her and acknowledged her feelings. That looked scary when you wobbled. Your body is still learning how to balance. This simple validation helped Maya's nervous system regulate itself, allowing her to return to practice with curiosity instead of fear. This emotional foundation shapes every learning experience. When children feel heard and understood, they develop what researchers call emotional safety, an internal sense that it's okay to make mistakes, ask questions, and try new things. Without this safety net, even the most engaging activities can trigger stress responses that block learning. Parents often worry they're being too soft when they pause to address emotions first. Research from Harvard Center on the Developing Child shows the opposite. Children who receive emotional coaching during difficult moments develop stronger self-regulation skills and perform better academically than those who don't. The key lies in timing. When a child is melting down about homework, their brain isn't ready for math lessons. But when we help them process those big feelings first, through listening, validating, and co-regulation, we literally restore their capacity to think clearly. The homework gets done more effectively, and the child learns valuable emotional skills in the process. Marcus's mother learned this lesson well. When he spilled that cereal, instead of expressing frustration, she knelt down and said, "Accidents happen. Let's clean this up together." 6 months later, Marcus confidently attempted new challenges, knowing that mistakes were learning opportunities rather than sources of shame. His emotional safety had become the foundation for all future learning. Chapter 2. The Heart and Mind Connection. Part 1. Understanding Little Minds and Big Emotions. When 3-year-old Marcus throws himself on the kitchen floor because his sandwich is cut into squares instead of triangles, his brain isn't malfunctioning. It's actually working exactly as designed. What looks like chaos from the outside represents a perfectly normal developmental process where emotion temporarily hijacks logic, creating learning opportunities that most parents miss entirely. Think of a child's developing brain like a construction site where 2 major areas are being built at very different speeds. The downstairs brain, which houses survival instincts and big emotions, comes online first and operates like a smoke detector, extremely sensitive and designed to sound alarms. Meanwhile, the upstairs brain, responsible for reasoning, planning, and emotional regulation, won't be fully constructed until around age 25. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research at UCLA reveals that when children experience intense emotions, their amygdala essentially floods their system with stress hormones, temporarily shutting down access to their prefrontal cortex. This explains why a normally articulate 4-year-old suddenly can't find words when upset, or why logical reasoning falls on deaf ears during a meltdown. Consider how weather patterns work. A thunderstorm doesn't last forever, but fighting against it only creates more turbulence. Similarly, when 5-year-old Emma melts down because her tower falls over, the storm needs to pass before rebuilding can happen. Parents who try to reason with children mid-meltdown are essentially shouting instructions into a hurricane. The key lies in what neuroscientists call co-regulation. When adults remain calm during children's emotional storms, they literally lend their regulated nervous system to help children return to baseline. Mirror neurons in children's brains actually sync with the emotional state of nearby adults, which explains why parental anxiety often amplifies children's distress. Real transformation happens in the aftermath. After Emma's tower incident, once she's calm, her parent might say, "That was really frustrating. I saw how hard you worked on that tower." This simple acknowledgement helps build neural pathways between the emotional and logical brain centers. Research from the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard shows that children who receive this type of empathetic response develop stronger emotional intelligence and better stress management skills throughout life. They learn that big feelings are temporary and manageable, not dangerous or shameful. The most powerful tool parents possess isn't distraction or immediate problem solving. It's genuine curiosity about their child's inner experience. When we ask, "What's happening in your body right now?" instead of "Stop crying," we teach children to notice their internal states and develop the vocabulary to express complex emotions. These everyday emotional moments represent prime real estate for brain building. Each time we help a child move from emotional chaos to calm connection, we're literally strengthening the neural highways between feeling and thinking, creating the foundation for lifelong emotional intelligence and resilience. Part 2. The Love and Logic of Parenting. When Sarah discovered her 4-year-old had drawn on the living room wall with permanent marker, her first instinct was to explode. Instead, she took 3 deep breaths and knelt down to her daughter's eye level. "I see you made some art. Walls aren't for drawing. Let's figure out how to fix this together." This moment perfectly captures what neuroscientists call the magic of love and logic parenting, where warmth meets structure to create the optimal conditions for brain growth. The developing brain craves predictability like a plant craves sunlight. When children know what to expect, their nervous systems can relax enough to focus on learning rather than scanning for threats. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research shows that consistent, loving boundaries literally build the neural pathways between the emotional limbic brain and the logical prefrontal cortex. This connection is crucial for everything from impulse control to creative problem solving. Think of structure as the banks of a river. Without them, water becomes a destructive flood. With them, it flows powerfully toward its destination. Children need these gentle banks to feel secure enough to explore and take risks. When we offer choices within clear limits, would you like to brush your teeth before or after putting on pajamas? We honor their growing autonomy while maintaining necessary routines. The secret lies in how we deliver boundaries. Research from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child reveals that harsh discipline floods young brains with stress hormones, actually impairing memory and learning capacity. But calm, connected correction activates the social engagement system, keeping children's brains in the optimal zone for growth and connection. Consider Maria, a single mother who transformed bedtime battles by implementing what she called loving limits. Instead of yelling when her son refused to sleep, she would sit beside his bed and calmly state, "It's time for rest. I'll stay here while you settle down." Night after night, she maintained this gentle consistency. Within 2 weeks, bedtime became peaceful. More importantly, her son began applying this same calm persistence to challenges at school. The why behind rules matters enormously to developing brains. When we explain our reasoning, we wear seatbelts because they keep our bodies safe. We're teaching cause and effect thinking. This doesn't mean lengthy lectures or negotiations with toddlers, but simple, clear explanations that help children understand the logic of family expectations. Love and logic parenting recognizes that children are always learning, even during difficult moments. When we stay emotionally regulated while setting limits, we're modeling the very skills we want them to develop. We're showing them that it's possible to be both kind and firm, both loving and boundaried. This integration of heart and mind becomes the template for how they'll handle challenges throughout their lives. Part 3. Growing Resilience Through Kindness. When 4-year-old Maya's block tower crashed for the 3rd time, her mother Sarah watched her daughter's face crumple with frustration. Instead of rushing to rebuild it or offering empty reassurance, Sarah knelt down and said, "That tower was really important to you. Building tall things is tricky work." This moment of acknowledged struggle would prove more valuable for Maya's developing brain than any quick fix could offer. Research from the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard reveals that resilience isn't an innate trait children either possess or lack. It's a set of skills that develops through relationships and experiences. The brain's stress response system, controlled by the amygdala, literally learns how to react based on how caring adults respond during difficult moments. When Sarah validated Maya's disappointment rather than dismissing it, she was teaching her daughter's nervous system that big feelings are manageable and that she wasn't alone in facing them. The neuroscience behind this interaction is fascinating. Dr. Dan Siegel's research shows that when children experience supportive responses during stress, their brains develop stronger neural pathways between the emotional centers and the prefrontal cortex. This connection becomes the biological foundation for emotional regulation later in life. Think of it like building mental muscle memory for bouncing back. Consider how differently this could have played out. If Sarah had said, "It's just blocks," or immediately rebuilt the tower herself, Maya's brain would have received a different message entirely. The missed opportunity lies not just in that moment, but in the accumulation of such moments over time. Children whose struggles are consistently met with kindness and support develop what researchers call stress inoculation. They learn that challenges are temporary and manageable. The key insight from child development research is that resilience grows through co-regulation before it becomes self-regulation. When adults remain calm during a child's storm, they're literally lending their nervous system to help the child's developing system find balance. This process, called neural borrowing, explains why Maya eventually learned to take deep breaths and try again, just as her mother had modeled. Real resilience teaching happens in small moments. When 5-year-old Marcus struggled with tying his shoes, his father said, "Your fingers are learning something really hard. Let's try once more together." This approach acknowledges the difficulty while maintaining confidence in the child's eventual success. It's not about preventing all struggles, but about being present during them. The most resilient children aren't those who never face difficulties. They're the ones whose adults help them understand that asking for help is strength, not weakness, and that trying again after failure is how all meaningful learning happens. Through consistent kindness during challenges, we're quite literally growing the neural architecture for lifelong resilience. Part 4. How our own stories help our kids. When Sarah caught herself snapping at her 4-year-old daughter for spilling juice, she heard her own mother's harsh voice echoing through time. That moment became a turning point. Research from UCLA shows that 75% of parenting behaviors stem directly from our own childhood experiences, making self-awareness perhaps the most powerful tool we can develop for raising lifelong learners. Our childhood memories live in our neural pathways, automatically influencing how we respond to our children's big emotions and learning struggles. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research reveals that parents who reflect on their own upbringing raise children with stronger emotional regulation skills. When we understand our triggers, we can choose different responses. Consider Maria, who grew up in a household where mistakes meant harsh criticism. She noticed herself tensing when her son struggled with homework, ready to deliver the same cutting words that once wounded her. Instead, she paused and shared an age-appropriate version of her story. "When I was your age, math felt really hard for me too. Let's figure this out together." This simple shift created connection instead of shame. The most remarkable transformation happens when parents consciously break negative cycles. Research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child shows that children whose parents process their own childhood experiences demonstrate better stress regulation and learning resilience. It's not about perfect parents, but about aware ones. When we share our own learning struggles appropriately, children see that growth is lifelong. 8-year-old Jake felt less alone with his reading challenges after his father explained how he overcame dyslexia through patience and practice. These stories become neural roadmaps for perseverance. But this process requires honest self-examination. What patterns from your childhood do you want to preserve? Which ones need changing? One father realized his fear of failure stemmed from his own father's perfectionism. He began celebrating his daughter's efforts regardless of outcomes, literally rewiring both their brains for growth mindset. The key is sharing stories that teach without overwhelming. A mother might say, "I used to get really frustrated when things were hard, but I learned that taking deep breaths helps my brain think better." These moments create emotional safety while modeling healthy coping strategies. Sometimes our childhood gifts need updating for modern times. Grandmother's emphasis on persistence might become teaching about productive struggle. Dad's figure-it-out-yourself approach might evolve into "let's problem solve together first, then try independently." The neuroscience is clear. Children co-regulate with their parents' emotional states. When we do our own emotional work, understanding how our past shapes our present responses, we create calmer, more supportive environments where learning flourishes. Our self-awareness becomes their emotional foundation, proving that the best gift we can give developing minds is parents who continue growing themselves. Chapter 3. Play, Explore, and Discover. Part 1. Learning through wonder and play. When Finnish educator Loris Malaguzzi watched 4-year-olds building elaborate block cities, he noticed something remarkable. Children engaged in play showed the same focused intensity as master architects designing real buildings. Their brains, he discovered, were firing across multiple regions simultaneously, creating neural pathways that formal lessons rarely achieve. Play operates as the brain's natural learning laboratory. When your 6-year-old transforms cardboard boxes into spaceships, she's not just having fun. She's exercising executive function, spatial reasoning, and creative problem solving. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research at UCLA demonstrates that playful activities activate the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for planning and decision-making, more effectively than structured academic tasks. Consider how children approach imaginative play. A group of preschoolers deciding to become firefighters must negotiate roles, establish rules, and solve problems as they unfold. This single play session exercises collaboration, emotional regulation, and abstract thinking. The Stanford Research Institute found that children who engaged in rich pretend play scored 25% higher on creativity measures than those who received formal instruction instead. Outdoor exploration amplifies these benefits exponentially. When children climb trees, they're calculating risk, strengthening proprioception, and building confidence. A 2019 study following 3,000 children across 10 years found that those with regular outdoor playtime developed superior problem-solving abilities and showed greater resilience when facing academic challenges. The magic happens because play feels effortless to children. Their stress hormone cortisol drops, while dopamine and serotonin increase, creating optimal conditions for memory formation. Free drawing sessions demonstrate this perfectly. Children experimenting with colors and shapes aren't just making art. They're developing fine motor control, visual spatial skills, and emotional expression without the pressure that accompanies formal instruction. How can parents create environments that honor play's learning power? Start by viewing mess as evidence of exploration, not chaos. When your daughter mixes paint colors and accidentally creates brown, she's discovering color theory through direct experience. When your son builds wobbly towers that collapse, he's learning physics principles that no textbook could teach as effectively. Simple changes make profound differences. Stock low shelves with open-ended materials, blocks, scarves, measuring cups, and art supplies. Create cozy reading nooks using pillows and blankets. Designate outdoor time as sacred, regardless of weather. These spaces invite children to direct their own learning adventures. The transformation happens gradually but consistently. Children who learn through play develop intrinsic motivation that sustains lifelong learning. They approach challenges with curiosity rather than anxiety because play taught them that mistakes lead to discoveries, not failures. This foundation proves invaluable as they encounter increasingly complex academic and life challenges. Part 2. Why experiences matter more than toys. When 3-year-old Maya helps her grandmother knead bread dough, her brain creates neural pathways that no expensive educational toy could match. This simple kitchen encounter engages her tactile system, teaches measurement and patience, strengthens family bonds, and builds practical life skills. Recent neuroscience research from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child shows that multi-sensory experiences create more robust neural connections than isolated skill-building activities. The modern parent faces an overwhelming toy industry worth over $100 billion annually, promising to boost intelligence through specialized products. Yet Dr. Daniel Siegel's research reveals that shared experiences activate multiple brain regions simultaneously, creating what neuroscientists call integration. When children engage in real-world activities with caring adults, their brains develop crucial connections between emotional, cognitive, and physical processing centers. Consider the difference between a child playing with a plastic kitchen set versus actually helping prepare dinner. The real experience involves genuine consequences, authentic problem-solving, and meaningful contribution to family life. 8-year-old Marcus learned fractions not from workbooks, but by measuring ingredients for pancakes with his father every Saturday morning. This weekly ritual taught mathematical concepts while building cherished memories and practical cooking skills. Dr. Erica Christakis, author of The Importance of Being Little, documented how children who engage in rich experiential learning show greater creativity and academic success years later. Her studies followed children from preschool through elementary school, finding that those who spent more time in hands-on activities with adults scored higher on standardized tests than peers who used educational software. Nature walks provide perfect examples of experience-rich learning. When families explore local trails together, children naturally ask questions about plants, animals, and weather patterns. These conversations spark curiosity while developing observation skills, physical coordination, and environmental awareness. The multisensory engagement strengthens memory formation, far beyond what screen-based nature documentaries could achieve. The key lies in shared attention and genuine interaction. When parents actively participate in experiences with children, they model thinking processes, emotional regulation, and problem-solving strategies. Dr. Patty Wipfler's research shows that children learn more effectively when activities involve meaningful connection with caregivers rather than independent play with sophisticated toys. Simple experiences often prove most powerful. Building blanket forts teaches engineering principles while creating magical spaces for imagination. Grocery shopping becomes lessons in budgeting, nutrition, and social interaction. Even mundane activities like folding laundry offer opportunities for sorting, counting, and cooperative work. The transformation happens gradually but measurably. Children who grow up with experience-rich childhoods develop stronger executive function skills, better emotional regulation, and more creative problem-solving abilities. They learn to find joy in simple moments and approach new challenges with confidence born from countless small successes alongside caring adults. Part 3. Encouraging independence and confidence. When 7-year-old Maya first asked to pack her own lunch, her mother Sarah's instinct was to hover and help. After all, Maya had never operated a can opener or measured portions correctly. But Sarah remembered her grandmother's words: "Children who are never allowed to stumble never learn to walk steadily." That simple wisdom launched a transformation that would reshape Maya's entire approach to learning. Neuroscience research reveals something remarkable about children's brains when they accomplish tasks independently. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for confidence and self-efficacy, literally lights up differently when children complete challenges without adult intervention. Part 4. Creating spaces for safe exploration. When 4-year-old Emma's grandmother watched her granddaughter turn the living room into an elaborate hospital using nothing but couch cushions, cardboard boxes, and kitchen towels, she marveled at the concentrated focus on Emma's face. Research from the University of Cambridge shows that children who have regular access to unstructured, safe spaces for exploration demonstrate 40% higher problem-solving abilities and increased resilience when facing challenges later in life. Creating these spaces requires intentional design that balances freedom with security. Child development expert Eleanor Goldsmead discovered through decades of observation that children need what she termed treasure baskets, not expensive toys, but carefully curated collections of natural materials and household objects that invite open-ended exploration. A large wicker basket filled with smooth stones, wooden spoons, fabric squares, and metal measuring cups becomes a laboratory where toddlers can safely investigate texture, weight, and cause-and-effect relationships. The physical environment sends powerful messages to developing brains. Dr. Sarah McKay's research demonstrates that spaces with multiple levels, varied textures, and flexible boundaries activate the brain's exploratory circuits more effectively than perfectly organized playrooms. Consider how architect Loris Malaguzzi designed the famous Reggio Emilia preschools in Italy. He created provocative environments with accessible art supplies, mirrors at child height, and outdoor classrooms where children could dig, climb, and build without constant adult intervention. Parents often struggle with the safety versus freedom balance. The key lies in understanding age-appropriate risk. When 3-year-old Marcus was allowed to use real kitchen tools under supervision, a small sharp knife for cutting soft fruits, measuring spoons for baking, his motor skills developed faster than peers using only plastic alternatives. His mother, initially nervous, realized that appropriate challenge builds competence more effectively than overprotection. Creating emotional safety proves equally important as physical security. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research shows that children need spaces where they can express big emotions without judgment. This might mean designating a quiet corner with soft pillows where children can retreat when overwhelmed, or establishing outdoor areas where loud voices and vigorous movement are welcome. When children know they have permission to feel and explore safely, their brains remain in optimal learning states. The transformation extends beyond individual children. Schools implementing these principles report decreased behavioral issues and increased engagement. At a primary school in New Zealand, removing traditional playgrounds and replacing them with loose materials, logs, tires, fabric, and tools, reduced injuries by 50% while increasing creativity and cooperation among students. Consider your own spaces through fresh eyes. Does your home offer opportunities for controlled messmaking? Are there areas where children can move their bodies freely? Can they access materials independently? These seemingly simple adjustments create profound opportunities for growth, building the neural pathways that support lifelong curiosity and confident learning. Chapter 4. The Journey of Lifelong Learning, Part 1, From First Steps to Forever Learners. When Maria noticed her 3-year-old daughter Elena asking why about everything, from rain patterns to ant behavior, she had no idea she was witnessing the formation of a mind that would later earn dual PhDs in biochemistry and environmental science. Research from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child reveals that children who maintain active curiosity through age 7 demonstrate 40% higher academic achievement and career satisfaction 20 years later. Think of early learning like constructing a house. The foundation determines everything that follows. When builders cut corners on the base structure, cracks appear years later in unexpected places. Similarly, the neural pathways children develop in their first years create templates for how they'll approach challenges, relationships, and new information throughout their lives. Dr. Daniel Siegel's groundbreaking research at UCLA shows that children's brains are most plastic during early years, forming over 1 million neural connections per second. These connections become the scaffolding for future learning. Consider how Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, credits her father's dinner table tradition of asking about failures rather than successes. This early reframing of mistakes as learning opportunities created neural patterns that later helped her persist through rejection after rejection before building her billion-dollar company. The neuroscience is fascinating but practical. When parents read bedtime stories with emotional expression, they're not just sharing tales, they're building their child's capacity for empathy and narrative thinking. When they encourage messy art projects despite the cleanup, they're fostering creative problem-solving networks. Each seemingly small interaction builds cognitive architecture. What makes the difference between children who become lifelong learners and those who lose their natural curiosity? Julia Black's research identifies 3 critical factors: emotional safety during exploration, consistent exposure to novel experiences, and adults who model wonder rather than knowing everything. Take the example of Temple Grandin, whose autism initially seemed like an obstacle to learning. Her mother's refusal to limit her daughter's interests, combined with emotional support during overwhelming moments, allowed Temple's unique brain patterns to develop into revolutionary insights about animal behavior and autism advocacy. The patterns established in early childhood echo through decades. Children who learn to see mistakes as puzzles to solve become adults who embrace career pivots and innovation. Those who experience emotional attunement from caregivers develop the self-regulation skills needed for everything from managing workplace stress to maintaining relationships. Building these foundations requires patience and intentionality. Every time you pause to answer a child's question thoughtfully, you're reinforcing neural pathways that value inquiry over quick answers. When you stay calm during their emotional storms, you're modeling the emotional regulation they'll need as adults facing their own challenges. Part 2. How Early Habits Last a Lifetime. When neuroscientist Patricia Kuhl discovered that babies who heard a second language during their first year of life could distinguish sounds that older children couldn't, she revealed something profound. The brain's earliest experiences don't just influence development, they literally rewire it for life. What happens in those first few years creates neural highways that determine how we learn, cope, and connect for decades to come. Consider the simple act of reading bedtime stories. When researcher Victoria Purcell Gates followed children for 15 years, she found that those who heard regular bedtime stories didn't just become better readers. They developed stronger abstract thinking skills, better emotional regulation, and higher career satisfaction as adults. The ritual itself mattered more than the books chosen. Children whose parents consistently read to them learned that learning was something to look forward to, not endure. Dr. Shonkoff's Harvard research on toxic stress shows how morning routines create lasting patterns. Children who experienced chaotic mornings developed stress response systems that remained hyper-vigilant into adulthood. But those with predictable morning rituals, even simple ones like eating breakfast together or having a consistent goodbye routine, showed better emotional regulation skills 30 years later. Their brains learned that the world was safe enough to explore and take risks. The dinner table proves equally transformative. Psychologist Anne Fishel tracked families for 20 years and discovered something remarkable. Children who shared regular family meals showed higher resilience scores as adults, not because of what they ate, but because of what they experienced. They learned to take turns speaking, handle disagreement respectfully, and connect daily experiences to broader meaning. These dinner conversations became templates for how they would approach workplace meetings, romantic relationships, and parenting their own children. Even seemingly mundane habits carry forward with surprising power. Children whose parents modeled curiosity by saying, "I don't know, let's find out," became adults who thrived during career transitions. Those who learned to clean up toys before moving to new activities developed executive function skills that later helped them manage complex projects and maintain organized homes. The emotional patterns established early prove especially persistent. When developmental psychologist Ross Thompson studied families dealing with toddler tantrums, he found that children whose parents stayed calm and offered comfort during meltdowns developed stronger emotional intelligence as teenagers. They learned that big feelings were manageable, not catastrophic. Decades later, these same individuals reported better relationships and career satisfaction. What makes these early patterns so lasting? The developing brain operates like wet cement. Every interaction leaves an impression that hardens over time. When we respond consistently to a child's needs, we're not just managing today's behavior. We're creating the neural architecture that will determine how they approach challenges, relationships, and learning opportunities for the rest of their lives. Part 3. Balancing challenge and support. When Olympic gymnast Shannon Miller was 12, her coach introduced a revolutionary training method. Instead of immediately attempting complex routines, Miller practiced each element separately, with safety nets below. Only after mastering individual components did she combine them. This approach, called scaffolding in child development, reveals the secret to raising confident, capable learners who thrive under pressure. The sweet spot between challenge and support operates like a perfectly calibrated thermostat. Set the temperature too low, and children coast in their comfort zone, never developing resilience. Crank it too high, and they shut down from overwhelm. Research from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child shows that moderate stress, what scientists call tolerable stress, actually strengthens neural pathways when combined with responsive support from adults. Consider how children learn to ride bicycles. Nobody expects a 4-year-old to balance on 2 wheels immediately. Smart parents start with training wheels, gradually raising them over weeks until the child barely notices their absence. This process mirrors how the brain builds confidence. Each small success creates positive neural patterns that whisper, "I can do hard things," during future challenges. Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings credits his childhood piano lessons for teaching him persistence. His mother never forced practice, but made it clear that quitting mid-lesson wasn't an option. Once he committed to a piece, he finished it, even if it took months. This approach built what neuroscientist Daniel Siegel calls mindsight, the ability to see through temporary frustration toward long-term growth. The magic happens in what psychologist Lev Vygotsky termed the zone of proximal development. Picture a child assembling a puzzle. Working alone, they complete pieces around the edges. With gentle guidance, perhaps a parent pointing to similar colors, they tackle the challenging middle sections. This collaborative approach builds both skill and confidence simultaneously. Real-world applications look surprisingly simple. When 7-year-old Maya struggles with multiplication, her father doesn't immediately provide answers. Instead, he hands her colored blocks and says, "Show me what 3 groups of 4 looks like." This concrete approach helps her brain form visual memories before abstracting to numbers. The key lies in reading your child's signals. Furrowed brows and focused attention indicate productive struggle. Tears, tantrums, or shutdown behaviors signal the challenge has exceeded their current capacity. Wise parents adjust accordingly, sometimes adding support, sometimes reducing complexity. This delicate dance creates children who approach new challenges with curiosity rather than fear. They've learned that difficulty isn't failure, it's simply information about what they need to practice next. These early experiences with balance, challenge, and support become the foundation for lifelong learning, creating adults who embrace growth opportunities rather than avoiding them. Part 4. Preparing for a Bright Tomorrow. When Netflix CEO Reed Hastings credits his childhood love of reading for his ability to think strategically about business disruption, he's revealing something profound about how early experiences shape adult capabilities. The daily habits we nurture in our children today aren't just about getting through elementary school. They're programming the operating system for their entire lives. Consider the remarkable story of Malala Yousafzai, whose father created a culture of curiosity and debate at their family dinner table. This wasn't just pleasant conversation, it was neuroarchitecture being built. Every time young Malala articulated her thoughts and listened to different perspectives, her brain was developing the pathways for critical thinking and resilience that would later help her advocate for education rights on the world stage. Her childhood experiences with intellectual challenge and emotional support created an adult who could maintain hope and purpose even under extreme adversity. The neuroscience behind this transformation is striking. When children experience consistent patterns of challenge followed by support, their brains develop what researchers call growth mindset pathways. These neural networks don't disappear at graduation. They become the foundation for how adults approach career changes, relationship difficulties, and new learning throughout life. A child who learns to persist through math problems becomes an adult who can adapt when artificial intelligence transforms their industry. Research from Stanford's Growth Mindset Institute shows that children who experience balanced challenge between ages 3 and 7 demonstrate 40% greater adaptability to career transitions in their 30s. This happens because early experiences of productive struggle literally reshape the prefrontal cortex, creating stronger connections between emotional regulation centers and problem-solving regions. Think about how Amazon's Jeff Bezos often speaks about his grandmother's patience, teaching him to solve mechanical problems as a child. Those summer afternoons weren't just bonding time. They were building the neural foundations for the persistence and systematic thinking that would later help him reimagine retail and space exploration. The emotional intelligence patterns established in childhood become particularly crucial as work becomes increasingly collaborative and automated. Children who learn to recognize their feelings, communicate needs clearly, and bounce back from disappointment develop the social-emotional skills that no algorithm can replicate. Every bedtime story read with enthusiasm, every family problem solved together, every moment you help your child work through frustration rather than avoiding it, these aren't just parenting moments. They're investments in a future adult who will approach change with curiosity rather than fear, who will see challenges as opportunities rather than threats, and who will continue learning and growing long after formal education ends. Chapter 5. Myths, Magic, and Real Life. Part 1. Busting Brain Myths for Smart Choices. When neuroscientist John Brewer published his groundbreaking research challenging the critical period myth, he discovered something that should comfort every exhausted parent. Your child's brain doesn't stop developing after age 3. In fact, the most crucial learning windows remain wide open for decades. The myth of the magical first 3 years has created a generation of anxious parents, convinced they must optimize every moment or risk their child's future. This pressure stems from misinterpreted brain research from the 1990s. Scientists studying Romanian orphans found severe neglect caused lasting damage. But somehow, this became twisted into the belief that typical family environments needed constant enhancement. Reality tells a different story. The human brain continues robust development well into the 20s. While early experiences matter tremendously, they're about relationships and emotional safety, not flashcards and educational apps. Dr. Patricia Kuhl's research at the University of Washington revealed that babies learning Mandarin through live interaction with speakers showed remarkable progress, while those exposed through videos learned virtually nothing. The magic ingredient wasn't the stimulation itself, but human connection. Consider the pressure many parents feel about screen time limits or structured activities. Research by Dr. Dimitri Christakis at Seattle Children's Hospital found that overstimulation can actually harm developing attention systems. Young brains benefit more from boredom than from constant entertainment. When children stare out windows or play with cardboard boxes for hours, they're not wasting time. They're building crucial neural networks for creativity and focus. The myth of constant stimulation has another dark side. It suggests parents must perform perfectly. But children of good enough parents, those who respond appropriately most of the time, while occasionally getting things wrong, develop better emotional regulation than children whose parents never make mistakes. Dr. Ed Tronick's famous still face experiments showed that when mothers briefly stopped responding to their babies, then reconnected, the repair process actually strengthened the parent-child bond. What truly builds learning brains? Simple daily interactions like narrating your grocery shopping, reading the same book repeatedly, or letting children help with cooking. These mundane moments create rich language exposure and emotional safety. The Romanian orphans didn't suffer because they lacked educational toys. They lacked responsive relationships. Modern brain imaging reveals that secure attachment relationships literally shape neural architecture. When children feel safe and understood, their brains develop optimal connections for learning, emotional regulation, and resilience. This happens through thousands of small interactions, acknowledging their feelings, staying calm during tantrums, and showing up consistently. The most liberating truth about child development is this: children are designed to learn. Their brains actively seek patterns, meaning, and connection. Your job isn't to force-feed information, but to provide the stable foundation from which natural curiosity can flourish. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply be present, responsive, and authentic, imperfections included. Part 2. Embracing Imperfection and Growth. When researcher Carol Dweck asked parents to describe their biggest parenting fear, one answer dominated: permanently damaging their child's future. Yet Stanford's longitudinal studies reveal something remarkable. Children who witness their parents making mistakes and recovering actually develop stronger problem-solving abilities than those raised by seemingly perfect caregivers. The pressure to be a flawless parent creates an impossible standard. Consider developmental psychologist Diana Baumrein's groundbreaking work following families for decades. She discovered that children of good enough parents Those who apologized for mistakes and adjusted their approach showed higher resilience markers at age 30 than children whose parents never admitted fault. Your child's brain is constantly monitoring how you handle difficulties. When 4-year-old Emma spills juice and her mother snaps, then immediately says, "I'm sorry, honey, I was frustrated about work, not upset with you." Emma's developing neural pathways are learning something profound. Mistakes don't define us. Our response to them does. This modeling matters more than perfection. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research shows that children whose parents demonstrate repair after conflict develop stronger emotional regulation skills. Their brains literally wire differently, creating robust pathways for recovery and growth. When you mess up and make it right, you're teaching your child's neurons that relationships can withstand imperfection. Real growth happens in those uncomfortable moments. Sarah, a mother from Minneapolis, describes the day her 5-year-old caught her crying after a difficult phone call. Instead of hiding her emotions, she explained she felt sad but would be okay. Years later, her daughter became the child who comforted classmates and sought help when struggling herself. The Japanese concept of failing forward offers valuable insight here. Children in Japan are taught that mistakes are information, not judgments. This cultural approach produces learners who persist longer and recover faster from setbacks than children raised to avoid errors. Your imperfections become your child's learning laboratory. When you forget the school permission slip and handle it calmly, when you lose patience and then reconnect, when you admit you don't know something and look it up together, you're demonstrating that learning never stops. Research from the University of Rochester shows that children who see their parents as fellow learners rather than infallible authorities develop stronger intrinsic motivation. They're more likely to take on challenges, ask questions, and view obstacles as temporary rather than permanent. The most powerful gift you can give your child isn't perfection, it's authenticity. Your willingness to be human, to grow alongside them, creates the emotional safety net from which all meaningful learning springs. Part 3. What science really says about early years. When Dr. Bruce Perry examined brain scans of children from different backgrounds at Baylor College of Medicine, he discovered something that would fundamentally change how we understand early development. The brains weren't just different in subtle ways, they showed dramatic variations in size, connectivity, and organization based on their earliest experiences. The human brain begins life with an extraordinary superpower. During the first few years, it produces neural connections at a rate of 700 to 1,000 per second. This isn't random firing, it's purposeful construction, building the foundation for everything your child will become. But here's what makes this process truly remarkable. Your child's brain doesn't just grow according to genetic programming. It grows in direct response to the world you create around them. Consider the groundbreaking Romanian orphanage studies led by Marshall Schechter in the 1990s. Children who experienced severe deprivation showed measurably smaller brain volumes, particularly in areas responsible for attachment and learning. Yet when these same children were placed in nurturing foster care, their brains began rapid catch-up growth. The earlier the intervention, the more dramatic the recovery. This wasn't just healing, it was active construction of new neural pathways. The science reveals 3 fundamental building blocks for optimal brain development. First comes emotional safety. When children feel secure, their brains can dedicate energy to learning rather than survival. The stress hormone cortisol, when chronically elevated, literally damages developing neural connections. But when children experience consistent, responsive caregiving, they develop what researchers call earned security, a biological foundation for resilience. Second is rich interaction, not passive stimulation. The difference matters enormously. A child watching an educational video experiences minimal brain activation compared to the explosive neural firing during back-and-forth conversation with a caring adult. MIT researcher Patricia Kuhl found that babies learning language from human interaction develop dramatically stronger neural pathways than those exposed to the same content through screens. Third comes exploration through play. When children engage in open-ended play, their prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, lights up like a Christmas tree. They're not just having fun, they're building the neural architecture for problem-solving, creativity, and flexible thinking. The American Academy of Pediatrics now considers play so crucial, they've issued official statements calling it essential for healthy brain development. What about all those expensive educational products promising brain enhancement? Neuroscientist John Brewer's extensive research reveals a pretty uncomfortable truth. Most commercial brain training programs show no lasting impact on cognitive development. The developing brain needs genuine human connection, not gadgets. Your everyday interactions, reading together, talking about feelings, playing peekaboo, activate multiple brain systems simultaneously. These moments build what neuroscientists call integration, helping different brain regions communicate effectively. This integration becomes the foundation for emotional regulation, critical thinking, and lifelong learning capacity. The beautiful reality is that optimal brain development doesn't require perfection or expensive interventions. It thrives on authentic relationship, consistent care, and the kind of rich, everyday experiences that happen naturally when adults truly engage with children's developing minds. Part 4. Your role in the brain-building story. When Maria first heard that parents are their child's first teachers, she worried this meant she needed lesson plans and flashcards. 2 years later, watching her daughter Sophia naturally count toy cars during bath time while narrating a story about their adventures, Maria realized something profound. She had been teaching all along, simply by being present, responsive, and genuinely interested in her child's world. This moment captures a fundamental truth that neuroscientist Daniel Siegel emphasizes in his research. Your brain is literally shaping your child's brain through every interaction. When you respond to your toddler's excitement about finding a ladybug, you're not just sharing a moment. You're building neural pathways that will influence how they approach discovery for decades to come. The anterior cingulate cortex, which governs attention and emotional regulation, develops stronger connections when children experience consistent, attuned responses from caregivers. Consider how Netflix CEO Reed Hastings credits his mother's patient responses to his endless childhood questions as foundational to his innovative thinking. She never dismissed his curiosity, instead treating each query as worthy of exploration. This pattern of validated curiosity becomes embedded in developing brains, creating what researchers call intrinsic motivation, the internal drive to keep learning. The power of your influence extends beyond individual moments. Dr. Sarah McKay's research shows that children whose parents model problem-solving develop more resilient neural networks. When you say aloud, this recipe isn't working, let me think about what might help, you're demonstrating how brains actually work through challenges. Your child absorbs this process, building their own capacity for persistence and flexible thinking. What makes your role particularly remarkable is its accessibility. You don't need specialized training or expensive materials. Tina Payne Bryson's studies reveal that simple practices, like narrating your child's emotions, you seem frustrated that the puzzle piece won't fit, or asking open-ended questions during car rides, create measurable changes in brain development. These interactions activate multiple neural systems simultaneously, building the integration that becomes the foundation for lifelong learning. The beautiful responsibility you carry isn't about perfection. Child development expert Ellen Galinsky found that children of parents who admitted mistakes and demonstrated repair developed stronger emotional intelligence. When you apologize to your 4-year-old for snapping after a long day, you're modeling how relationships work and how brains can change and grow. Your everyday presence, the way you listen, respond, and share your own thinking, is writing your child's neural story. This isn't pressure, it's recognition of the extraordinary opportunity embedded in ordinary moments. Every authentic interaction is an investment in a brain that will keep learning, adapting, and discovering long after your child has grown.